Welcome everybody to the Electric Education Center training session number 23, which is titled Final Wiring. The subject is what's called the final, and that's installing the devices and the luminaires and the final connections. And sometimes you just call it devicing out. First, we had to complete the rough wiring, and the ins and outs of the rough wiring were covered in the previous two sessions, number 21 and 22, so be sure to review them. Actually, the final stage is going to require at least two of these additional training sessions. So you completed a perfect rough-in and you're ready to do your final. And at the completion of the rough wire, all the grounds were made up in the boxes. You successfully tested and proved that the cables, the non-metallic sheet cables, the Romex, were free from unwanted grounds and shorts. You advised the builder that if there were any problems caused by the drywall installers, as they opened up the openings for the boxes, it would necessitate removing sheetrock in order to pull in new cable to replace the damaged cable. So before starting the final, you do a visual inspection of each box that the drywall installers cut out and inspect for obvious damage. And note that it's at this point where you're going to find out that there's a box or two still buried and was never cut out. So after seeing no obvious damage, we can get started installing the devices. Once again, measure the branch circuits at this point and connect them to a GFCI breaker, for example. And if all the testing proves good, the electrician can start installing the devices, connect the appliances if they're ready, and install the luminaires and the lamps. So we'll do the receptacles first. In today's single-family dwelling unit, the majority of receptacles installed are required to be tamper resistant. Note that these receptacles are not tamper-proof. They are tamper-resistant. With regard to the receptacles, the manufacturers do not specify a torque value for the screws on the receptacles. They just say to tighten them sufficiently. So go ahead and tighten them sufficiently. Do not backstab or backwire any receptacle. Not a good practice for a professional. So always wrap the conductors around the screws and tighten them and connect them that way. Also, read the directions that come with the receptacles. Your manufacturer may specify a tightening torque. Okay, so be sure to check the instructions that come with the receptacle. The dryer receptacle, for example, does specify a tightening torque of 25 inch-pounds. So read the package label, instruction sheet, or the imprint on the receptacle itself. So back to the duplex receptacles, basically connect the black insulated conductor to the brass colored screw for the hot wire connection, and the white insulated conductor to the light colored or silver colored screw for the neutral connection. When stuffing the receptacle into the device box, keep in mind that the conductors, when they were roughed in, were required to stick out past the face of the box a minimum of 3 inches. If they are a little longer, that's okay. It's easier to stuff a receptacle with long leads than one with short leads. Rich, should I install the ground pin up or the ground pin down for these duplex receptacles? Well, that's your preference. The National Electrical Code doesn't address that issue. So always check the job drawings and the job specs to see if someone has it in writing which way it should go. Sometimes it's the homeowner, sometimes it's the building owner, sometimes it's the engineer that did the drawings. Always read the specs that are on those drawing sheets. They are not all standard statements. And one of them might say that the ground pin wants to be installed up, or another one might say we want the ground pin installed down. So it's and I've seen it. I've seen a whole apartment wired with the receptacles ground pin down, and then the drawing said it was supposed to be ground pin up, and the electrician had to change them all. He actually called me and said, "Rich, do I have to turn them all over?" I said, "Yes. Follow the directions on the drawings. That's the simple thing for you to do." My good friend and mentor John Whitney is a stickler just for reading the directions that come on the drawings. It's that simple. Just asking a person to read and follow the notes on the drawings. That's the way to keep yourself out of trouble. So, do I need a receptacle for the electric range and the electric dryer? Well, generally, yes. A couple of pointers here. Let's start with the electric range. The manufacturers will tell you where or where not to locate the range receptacle, but generally it's down low on the wall next to the floor. Some are even screwed to the floor because there's a lot of solid wood there to catch onto. Many electric ranges still have that storage drawer at the bottom of the range, and if so, NEC code section 422.33b, 422.33b, then allows the cord and plug to be used as the disconnect. That cord and plug can serve as the disconnect for that appliance. However, if that is not the case, the electric range and any other kitchen appliances that do not have a disconnecting means of a cord and plug will require that a breaker lock be installed so that anyone who has to service the appliance can safely do so after first locking out the circuit breaker in the electric panel. I've shown you these before. This is a square D breaker lock that would go on there, and when you turn the circuit breaker off, you would put your lock through here, and then nobody could turn on that appliance and get you shocked or hurt or killed while you're working on the appliance. Here's another one here, the old Challenger style GE and all of them. They come with this snap-on bracket, and this hasp has to stay on. When you put this hasp on the breaker, and then you put the cover on the panel, the NEC considers that as being permanent, as being a permanent hasp. So be sure to put them on if you don't have a disconnect at the appliance. What other appliances would need this permanent hasp on the breaker for locking out? I could think of the possibly the garbage disposal if it's an incinerator type that doesn't have a wall switch. Wall ovens that have no access to the back to get to a cord and plug is another item. And dishwashers. Dishwashers are still allowed to be direct wired. So there's a couple of examples when you would need this permanent hasp. Rich, do I need a receptacle for the electric range and the electric dryer? Generally, yes. A couple of pointers here. Let's start with the electric range. The manufacturers will tell you where or where not to locate the range receptacle, but generally it is down low on the wall next to the floor. Some will be screwed to the baseboard, some will be screwed right to the floor. Many electric ranges still have a storage drawer at the bottom of the range, and if so, the NEC code section 422.33b, that's 422.33b applies here, and that allows the cord and plug to be used as a disconnect because they're accessible. However, if this is not the case, you don't have a drawer at the bottom of the range, the electric range and any other kitchen appliances that don't have a disconnecting means like that will require that a breaker lock be installed so that anyone who has to service the appliance can safely do so after first locking out the breaker in the electric panel. So you would have to install, here's two different styles here. We'll do this one first, is the square D. All right, square D has a positive locking hasp that goes onto the breaker and really stays on there securely. This one here is, Challenger, GE, they're all that same style. They have a hasp that locks onto the breaker, and then when you put the breaker into the panel and install the panel door, the code considers this as being permanently installed. And then no matter which one of us walk into this building, we can put our own lock in here and lock a breaker off and then work on an appliance safely. So if you don't have a disconnect at the appliance, you're going to have to install these breaker locks. The other important point for electric ranges is this. You were required to install a 4-wire conductor during the rough-in stage. In the terminal box on the electric range, you will see that there's a bond wire or a strap that bonds or connects the neutral terminal to the frame of the appliance. you will need to lift that connector so that you can connect your 4 wires. Do not cut that bonding strap. Unscrew one end or the other and then just push it out of the way so it doesn't make connection. You do this because if this new range is ever moved to a location that has a 3-conductor circuit, the bond must be reinstalled or reconnected. Now, the reason for all this is that for many code cycles, it was code compliant to supply electric ranges and dryers with 3-wire. That's 2 hots and a ground, with the ground also serving as a neutral for these small amounts of current, like from a control circuit. But since the 2005 NEC, these 2 appliances must be supplied by a 4-conductor cable per NEC section 250.140. And that has 1 grounding conductor, or in street language, you have a cable in there that has 2 hots, a neutral, and a ground. And that's why, getting back to this 3-prong thing, that's why we still see 3-prong cords and receptacles for sale in the stores. They're still legal to be used as replacement for existing appliances, but any new installations require 4-conductor for the branch circuit, 4-prong cords, and 4-prong receptacles. You might say, Rich, I've seen dryers and ranges that are direct wired. Is that even allowed? Yes, it is, but I'll explain that in a future vlog session. Another requirement of the installer of the electric range is to install an anti-tip bracket that is supplied by the manufacturer. Now, this bracket is very important. In the old days, these electric ranges used to be very heavy and tipping the range over was not an issue. These days, the modern electric ranges are much lighter in weight due to thinner gauge of metal being used, etc. Therefore, when the homeowner opens the oven door and slides out the shelf with an 18-pound turkey on it, the range can and has tipped forward, causing problems of burns and or messes to clean up. So the problem comes about when the electrician doesn't have anything to do with installing the appliance itself. As a matter of fact, the appliances might not even be delivered until long after the electrician is finished and gone. So who does this leave? The appliance delivery guy? I don't think so. The delivery guy knows nothing about 3-wire versus 4-wire or bonding or anti-tip issues or anything like that. The appliance delivery guy brings in a new appliance, takes out the old, or just brings in the new appliance. That's it. That's their qualifications. That's it. They are not electricians. So now what? Who's going to do it? The homeowner? The homeowner knows nothing about this either. Since the electric range and the electric dryer don't come with cords, the homeowner goes to the hardware store and buys a cord in a bag that says electric range cord or electric dryer cord, and naturally comes on with a 3-prong plug when he needs a 4-prong. He also has no clue what to do with this strange-looking piece of metal that was taped to the shelf inside the oven. The homeowner doesn't know anything about the anti-tip bracket, and that is where and how the problems arise. Always, always offer the customer an adder to your basic contract for appliance connections, because you're going to have to come back on a separate day and do all this. $450, $650, $850, $1,250 does not matter. Whatever you charge, you've got to offer this adder to the homeowner to make sure that the appliances are installed correctly and safely. No, that's a lot of money. I don't want to pay that. Well, that's fine. If you don't want to, if the homeowner says that they don't want to pay, well, that's fine. Here's sign right here. I will take care of getting my appliances connected. But you've got to get that in writing. Moving on to the electric dryer, we have some issues here as well. Again, these days, you have to install a 4-wire branch circuit, a 4-wire dryer receptacle, and a 4-wire dryer cord and plug. When in installing the dryer receptacle, the electrician may not be thinking of the orientation of the receptacle. And that's why you see many dryer cords installed, plugged in upside down. Always install the dryer receptacle with the ground pin up so that the cord hangs correctly. Another tip is to make sure that both the dryer and the range receptacle electric boxes are installed super securely at the rough end stage. It takes some force to plug in these heavy cords, okay? And you want to make sure that electric box that you put in earlier at the rough-in stage was installed securely. Don't be afraid to provide extra support to accomplish this. All right, so here's where the problem comes in. All right, you get this receptacle from the supply house, and you take a look at it, and it says here, replace only with 75 degrees C receptacle, aluminum or copper, and they give you a 75 C rating and all that, but the writing is right side up in this orientation. And so then the electrician thinks, well, that's the way I've got to install this, so you could read the writing. And that's where it's wrong. This receptacle actually has to go in this orientation with that ground pin up, so that when you plug in your cord, all right, the cord will hang. All right, and that's where guys get misled. They read the writing and say, "Oh, it's got to be installed that way," and then you end up with this. You know, you go into some houses, and the receptacle's like this, and you see the cord like this hanging down. Always stressing and trying to break the connection. It doesn't give you the clearance, and so then they jam the dryer back against this cord to put some more pressure on it, and that leads to early failure. You want the cord to hang like this. All right. So to do that, all right, you have to, oh, 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 see what I tell you. So you have to put that ground pin, the U-shaped pin, up, and then this cord will hang correctly. All right. So you've been advised. All right. So let's continue with this appliance connection package. So this connection package would include the electric range, the electric dryer, the garbage disposal, the built-in wall oven, the HVAC connections, and any others that might be in this dwelling unit. You know, if anything goes wrong with the appliances in the future, the installer's name will come up. The installer will be responsible, and you're going to need proof that you did your best to do the right thing. You need proof that the homeowner accepted or rejected your offer to do all these appliance connections correctly. When you go in front of Judge Judy, you've got to have proof, and that would include pictures. As with the electric range, the electric dryer has that same bonding issue. There's a bonding strap that goes, when that dryer arrives at the house, there's a bonding strap that goes from the neutral lug to the frame of the dryer. If you're using a 4-wire installation, that bond must be lifted. Rich, from what you're telling me, it seems that there be a lot of electric ranges and dryers installed incorrectly. That is correct, Skippy. Now you're catching on. Every house or dwelling unit you walk into for your customers should be checked by you so that you can advise the homeowner on how to make the corrections if needed, and this will be done to keep them safe from shock and burn hazards. Be ready to quote your $850 or $1,250 appliance connection package, and always, always, always read the manufacturer's instructions. You know, I was born and raised in Scranton, PA, and we lived in a home that was 90 some years old, something like that. Knob and tube wiring, and the dryer was located right next to the refrigerator. So the dryer was a porcelain coated appliance, and there was chips out of it. I'm one of 9 kids. There was chips out of a lot of things in our house. If you put your left hand on this bare spot on the dryer, and then grab that metal door handle on the refrigerator, bam, you got 120 volts right through. And you say whatever you say when you get shocked. And then for 3, maybe 4 weeks, you would forget all about that, and you would never do that again. But 3 or 4 weeks down the line, there goes the hand on the bare spot, and there goes the hand on the refrigerator door, and bam, 120 volts again, hand to hand, right through the chest muscles, right through the heart. And none of us ever bought the farm, but we learned to just touch the refrigerator handle without leaning on that dryer. So it is a dangerous situation. that these things have to be connected right and grounded right, and take that bonding strap off if you're doing 4-wire, etc. These things are very, very important. All right, let's move on to the refrigerator. That's another way you could come up with a surprise these days. When you discover that the refrigerator needs to be plugged in, and the manufacturer needs an individual branch circuit, what you would call a dedicated circuit in the field. That term is not in the code book. In the code book, it's called an individual branch circuit. Why is this a surprise? Well, because forever and still, the NEC in section 210.52B1 allows the refrigerator to be supplied by one of the two 20-amp appliance circuits. You have an A circuit and a B circuit, both of 20 amps serving the kitchen counter for all those appliances. Now, the manufacturer might have a different requirement, and his requirement tops the NEC rules. Okay, and that's why I keep telling you, read the instructions that come with the appliances. So if you tried to save yourself from installing another arc fault breaker or possibly an arc fault, a GFCI circuit breaker, by coming off one of the two appliance circuits, you may have caused yourself a big problem. And that is why I would guess that 95% or 98% or more of the electricians in this world do not take a chance, and they always install an individual branch circuit of either 15 or 20 amps. So there's a word to the wise. Next issue is the garbage disposal. During the rough-in and final stages, that pesky garbage disposal still hasn't been arrived or been installed by the plumber. So the electrician is off to his next project, and that leaves the disposal connection up to someone else. Now, that someone else is likely the plumber, and that's why you will see things like Romex connectors or MC connectors missing, not being installed, or ground wires not being connected correctly. You might see a ground wire wrapped around a Romex connector screw, and this is not the way to do it. I was lucky to have my brother Mark. He's a plumber, and he would follow us up on the same jobs that we did, and I knew that the appliances like the garbage disposal and the dishwasher were going to be hooked up the right way, because he knows more about electrical connections than some of the electricians I know. So I never had to worry about the garbage disposal or the dishwasher connections being made correctly, but you do. So let's talk about that dishwasher installation for a second. Rich, my inspector says that I have to connect the dishwasher using a cord and plug. Rich, my inspector says I can't direct wire the dishwasher. Rich, my inspector says I have to run an individual branch circuit for the dishwasher. And to that I say bogus, bogus, and bogus. The dishwasher can be direct wired or cord and plug per NEC section 422.16B2. Also, an individual 20 amp circuit supplying a duplex receptacle under the kitchen sink can generally serve both the dishwasher and the garbage disposal as long as neither one draws more than 50% of the circuit size. So no more than 10 amps on a 20 amp circuit per the NEC section 201.23A2. As long as neither appliance draws more than 10 amps, they can both be plugged into that one circuit. Again, NEC section 201.23A2. Also, if you are connecting this dishwasher using a cord and plug, the NEC section 422.16B25 requires that the receptacle be located in the space adjacent to the dishwasher space. This space is generally going to be the space right below the kitchen sink. When you run into a situation where the receptacle is located right in the dishwasher space itself, don't panic here. Until the 2011 NEC was adopted, that location used to be allowed. It was allowed to have the receptacle in the same space as the dishwasher itself. So since it was legal when it was installed, it's allowed to remain there. And that is what's referred to as something being grandfathered. Okay, so that is all for this session. Be sure to catch the next 1 or 2 sessions to learn some tricks and the rules for this final stage of wiring. But for now, Van Wert out.